Commander Zara Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Fleet slouched in her captain's chair, boots propped irreverently on the pristine control console of the TFY Audacity. Her first officer, a towering Andorian named Kexley, watched with poorly concealed horror as she cracked open her fourth beer of the evening shift. Captain, with all due respect, consuming fermented grain beverages while on duty is strictly against Regulation 47B of the— "Oh, stuff it, Kex," Zara interrupted, taking a long swig. "It's my birthday, we're stuck on routine patrol in the most boring sector of space, and I'm technically off duty in," she checked her holo display, 17 minutes. The Andorian's antennae twitched in disapproval, but before he could launch into another lecture about proper command decorum, the ship's AI chimed in. "Captain, detecting unusual energy signatures from the Proxima Centauri jump point. Pattern matches, oh dear. Pattern matches harvester signatures." Zara's boots hit the deck with a thunk as she straightened in her chair. The harvesters were the stuff of nightmares, a machine race that consumed entire worlds for resources, leaving nothing but hollow husks in their wake. The last time humanity encountered them, 3 colonies were lost before they managed to drive them back. "Show me," she ordered, suddenly stone-cold sober. A holographic display materialized, showing a massive fleet of biomechanical ships emerging from the jump point. The lead vessel alone was bigger than a small moon. "Well," Zara said, studying the tactical readout, "that's about 12 times more firepower than we've got. Kex, send an emergency broadcast to Fleet Command. Let them know we've got company." "Already done, Captain. But the nearest reinforcements are 3 hours away at best speed." Zara nodded, then reached for her beer again. The bridge crew watched in fascination as she drained the remainder in one long pull. "Captain?" Kex ventured nervously. "Hold my beer, Kex," she said, handing him the empty bottle. "I've got an idea." The Andorian's skin went from blue to practically white. In his 3 years serving with humans, he'd learned that those 4 words, "hold my beer," were invariably followed by something either brilliant, insane, or both. Usually both. The ship's AI, which had been monitoring all known harvester communications channels, suddenly spoke up. "Captain, they're broadcasting their usual ultimatum. Surrender your worlds and resources for processing or be eliminated." Yeah, typical killer robot stuff," Zara waved dismissively. "Hey, what's the status on that experimental quantum torpedo Dr. Chen was working on?" The ship's weapons officer, Lieutenant Park, checked his console. "The prototype is loaded, but it's completely untested. Dr. Chen said it could either create a localized quantum singularity or turn everything within a light year into strawberry pudding." "I like those odds," Zara grinned. "And what about that weird resonance thing we detected in the Proxima Centauri jump point last week? The subspace harmonic anomaly." The science officer, Dr. Isabella Martinez, pulled up the data. "Yes, we tracked it, but it's highly unstable. Any significant energy discharge could cause a cascading." "Perfect," Zara interrupted. "Here's the plan. We're going to fire that quantum torpedo directly into the jump point while broadcasting a specific frequency to trigger the harmonic anomaly. With any luck, it'll create a temporary artificial wormhole that'll suck the harvester fleet into, well, somewhere else." The bridge fell silent. Even the ship's AI seemed to be processing this. "Captain," Kex finally managed, "the chances of that working are approximately—" "Don't tell me the odds, Kex. Never tell me the odds." Zara punched up the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to do something incredibly stupid and dangerous. As per human tradition, I'm going to need everyone to cross their fingers and maybe say a quick prayer to whatever deity you prefer. Bridge out." The harvester fleet was approaching rapidly, their massive ships casting long shadows across the stars. Their weapon systems were powering up, ready to reduce the TFY Audacity to its component atoms. "Dr. Martinez, start broadcasting that resonance frequency. Lieutenant Park, load the quantum torpedo and target the exact center of the jump point. Kex, you might want to hold on to something." The Andorian first officer gripped his console with both hands, muttering what sounded like ancient Andorian prayers under his breath. And fire. The prototype quantum torpedo streaked across space, its weird physics leaving a trail of distorted spacetime in its wake. At the same time, the Audacity's transmitters pumped out the precise frequency needed to aggravate the subspace anomaly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. The jump point exploded in a spectacular display of quantum mechanics gone wrong. Space itself seemed to tear open, creating a swirling vortex of impossible colors. The harvester ships, caught in the gravitational pull of whatever the hell Zara had just created, began to be dragged backward. "Ha!" Zara shouted triumphantly. "Suck on that, you oversized toasters." The massive harvester vessels, despite firing their engines at full power, were being inexorably pulled into the quantum maelstrom. Their weapon fire went wild, missing the Audacity by kilometers as they struggled against the artificial singularity. Then, just as the last harvester ship disappeared into the vortex, the ship's AI spoke up again. "Captain, I should mention that we're also being pulled in." "Ah," Zara said. "Right, hadn't thought about that part. Engineering. Give me everything you've got to the engines." "Captain," Chief Engineer Ravi Sharma's voice came back, heavy with both amusement and resignation, "the engines are already at 120% of recommended maximum output." "Then give me 150%. That's not how physics works. It is if you believe hard enough. Somehow, whether through the power of human determination, sheer dumb luck, or perhaps the universe simply deciding it wasn't done being entertained by this particular crew yet, the Audacity managed to break free of the quantum vortex's pull just as it collapsed in on itself. In the sudden silence that followed, Keck slowly released his death grip on his console. "Captain," he said carefully, "did you just defeat an entire harvester fleet by creating an artificial wormhole using an untested weapon and a spatial anomaly?" "Looks like it," Zara replied, looking rather pleased with herself. "And did you do this while technically intoxicated?" "Only slightly buzzed, really." At that moment, a priority transmission came in from Fleet Command. Admiral Chen's holographic form appeared on the bridge, looking both impressed and terrified. "Captain Rodriguez," he said, "we just received your distress call and the subsequent sensor data." "Did you actually?" Yes, sir," she interrupted cheerfully. "Enemy fleet has been neutralized. Though we might want to send a probe through the Proxima jump point to make sure they didn't end up somewhere we'll have to apologize for later." The Admiral pinched the bridge of his nose. "Do I want to know how you managed this?" "Probably not, sir. But I did file it under Hold My Beer in the tactical database." "Of course you did." The Admiral sighed. "I'll expect your full report, eventually. Fleet Command out." As the hologram faded, Kex turned to his captain. "Where do you think we sent them?" Zara shrugged. "Given the quantum nature of the torpedo and the subspace harmonics involved, could be anywhere. Another galaxy, another dimension. Or maybe they all got turned into strawberry pudding after all." Speaking of which, she turned to her first officer with a grin. "I believe you're still holding my empty beer, Kex. Be a dear and fetch me another one. I think I've earned it." The Andorian looked down at the bottle still clutched in his hand, then back at his captain. After a moment's consideration, he straightened to his full height and announced, "I believe I will join you in this human tradition of victory celebration, Captain." "Now you're getting it." Zara laughed. "Dr. Martinez, plot us a course back to the nearest starbase. I think we've earned some shore leave. And somebody better call Dr. Chen. He's going to want to know what his torpedo did. After he stopped screaming about us using an untested prototype in combat, of course." As the Audacity turned away from the now quiet jump point, the ship's AI updated the official incident report. Under tactical notes, it added, "When human commanders say hold my beer, probability of either brilliant success or catastrophic failure approaches 100%. Mathematical models cannot predict which outcome is more likely. Recommendation, increase tactical threat assessment to maximum any time this phrase is uttered. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, or possibly in a dimension composed entirely of strawberry pudding, a fleet of very confused harvester ships was probably reconsidering their policy on attacking human-controlled systems. After all, any species crazy enough to weaponize an untested quantum device while buzzed on fermented grain juice was probably best left alone." Back on the bridge of the Audacity, Zara propped her boots back up on her console and raised her fresh beer in a toast. "To humanity's greatest tactical advantage, the ability to turn that's a terrible idea into holy shit, it actually worked." The bridge crew, even Kex, raised their own hastily acquired beverages in response to terrible ideas. And somewhere in the ship's computer, the AI made another note, update to previous tactical assessment. When humans celebrate terrible ideas working, recommend immediate evacuation of sector. Secondary terrible ideas often follow in rapid succession. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. For now, the crew of the Audacity had some well-earned celebrating to do, and Zara had a very interesting report to write, just as soon as she finished her beer. Or maybe after one more. After all, paperwork is always better with a slight buzz. especially when trying to explain to Fleet Command how you violated about 17 different regulations while saving human space from killer robots through the power of quantum physics and alcohol-inspired brilliance. Just another day in the life of a human starship captain. As it turned out, writing that report proved more challenging than defeating the Harvester fleet. Zara sat in her quarters, staring at the blinking cursor on her terminal while nursing her 7th beer of the evening. "Computer," she announced to the room at large. "How do I professionally phrase one-yeeted killer robots into another dimension using experimental science and blind luck?" The ship's AI, which had developed quite a sense of humor during its time serving with humans, replied, "Perhaps, tactical initiative utilizing prototype quantum armaments in conjunction with naturally occurring spatial phenomena resulted in successful enemy force displacement." "Perfect. That's exactly the kind of bureaucratic nonsense they love." Zara began typing, then paused. "Though maybe we should leave out the part about the beer." "Already deleted that from the sensor logs, Captain," the AI replied smugly. "Though I should warn you that Dr. Chen is currently storming through Deck 7, reportedly muttering something about irresponsible cowboys and years of careful research ruined." Zara winced. "How mad is he, scale of 1 to 10? Based on his current blood pressure and vocal patterns, I'd say approximately thermonuclear." Before Zara could formulate a plan to avoid the inevitably explosive conversation with her chief physicist, her door chime rang. She barely had time to say "come in" before Dr. Marcus Chen burst into her quarters, his usually immaculate lab coat askew and his gray hair standing on end, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. "You fired my quantum torpedo," he accused, pointing a trembling finger at her. "Do you have any idea how many safety protocols you violated? How many fundamental laws of physics you potentially broke?" That weapon was theoretical. The mathematics weren't even fully worked out. But it worked, Zara pointed out helpfully, taking another sip of her beer. "That's not the point. The point is," he paused, blinking. "Wait, what exactly did happen?" "The sensor data is impossible." Zara grinned and held up another beer. "Want one? Trust me, this story goes down better with alcohol." 20 minutes and 2 beers later, Dr. Chen was sitting cross-legged on her floor, scribbling equations on a datapad while occasionally muttering phrases like quantum tunneling cascade, multidimensional probability matrix. "So you're telling me," he said, looking up from his calculations, "that by firing the torpedo at precisely the same moment you triggered the subspace harmonic, you accidentally created a bridge between parallel universes?" "Maybe. I mean, we definitely sent them somewhere, or turned them into pudding. We're still not sure about that part." Chen's eyes lit up with the peculiar madness that all scientists get when confronted with new and impossible data. "Do you realize what this means? We've accidentally discovered a way to manipulate quantum reality on a macro scale. This could revolutionize everything from space travel to waste disposal. We could." He was interrupted by another chime at the door. This time it was Kex, looking even more concerned than usual. "Captain, we're receiving a rather unusual transmission." "Define unusual," Zara said, reaching for another beer. "It appears to be coming from a parallel dimension. And it's, well, perhaps you should see for yourself." The wall screen flickered to life, showing what appeared to be an alternate version of their own bridge. The key difference was that everything was, indeed, made of strawberry pudding. A pudding-based version of Zara waved from the screen. "Hey there. Just wanted to let you know your robot friends arrived safely. We've got them contained in a giant parfait glass. Turns out killer robots don't function so well when their circuits are made of gelatin and fruit." "Who knew?" The real Zara turned to Dr. Chen, who had stopped writing and was staring open-mouthed at the screen. "See? Pudding theory confirmed. I believe you owe me 20 credits. Chen wordlessly handed over his credit chip, still staring at the impossible scene before them. Pudding, Zara continued. "Anyway, we're going to keep them here. Our universe could use some more iron in its diet, if you know what I mean. Plus, they make excellent dessert decorations. Just wanted to let you know everything worked out. Oh, and if you ever feel like visiting, the quantum frequency is..." She rattled off a string of numbers that Chen frantically wrote down. "Thanks, alternate me!" Zara called out. "Keep it sweet over there." As the transmission ended, Kex turned to his captain with an expression that suggested he was seriously reconsidering his career choices. "Captain, should I update our first contact protocols to include dessert-based civilizations?" "Probably a good idea. And maybe stock the mess hall with more pudding, just in case we need to conduct diplomatic relations." Zara turned back to her terminal. "Now, how do I explain this part in the report?" "Perhaps," the AI suggested, "we should file this under successful cultural exchange rather than weapons test results." "Good thinking." though I still need to explain how we discovered an entirely new universe composed of desserts. Technically, Chen muttered, still scribbling equations, it's not a new universe. According to quantum theory, all possible universes already exist. We just happen to find the one where all matter is expressed in pudding form. The real question is, what flavor is their space-time continuum? Zara pointed her beer bottle at him accusingly. See, this is exactly why we don't let physicists make first contact. Next thing you know, you'll want to take samples of their fundamental forces. Well, now that you mention it. No. Absolutely not. The last thing we need is to start an interdimensional incident over dessert theft. She turned back to her report. Now, how do we phrase successfully relocated hostile forces to parallel pudding dimension in proper military jargon? Before anyone could offer suggestions, another alarm sounded. The AI's voice held a note of what might have been either amusement or resignation. Captain, Fleet Command is requesting an immediate conference call. It seems they've detected the interdimensional transmission and have questions. Zara looked at her empty beer bottle, then at Chen's equations, then at Kex's increasingly pale blue face, and finally at the small pudding stain on her console where some of the transmission had apparently leaked through. Right, she said, straightening her uniform. Kex, get me another beer. Chen, prepare your quantum pudding theory presentation. AI, start composing a playlist of dessert theme music for potential diplomatic functions. And somebody find me a physicist who specializes in gelatin-based physics, because I have a feeling we're going to need one. As her crew scrambled to prepare for what would undoubtedly be the strangest debriefing in fleet history, Zara couldn't help but smile. Some days, being a human starship captain meant facing down deadly enemies with superior firepower. Other days it meant explaining to your superiors why you turned those enemies into dessert and accidentally discovered a universe made of pudding. All in all, she decided it was still better than parking duty. Meanwhile, in the pudding dimension, Harvester ships floated helplessly in their parfait prison, their deadly weapons reduced to sprinkles, while Pudding Zara and her crew debated the proper protocol for serving mechanized killing machines as after-dinner treats. Just another day in the multiverse, where humanity's unique approach to problem-solving continued to confound both friend and foe alike, across all possible dimensions, pudding-based or otherwise. The Fleet Command conference room had never seen anything quite like this. 5 admirals sat in stunned silence as they watched Dr. Chen's holographic presentation about quantum pudding mechanics, while Captain Zara Rodriguez stood at attention, trying very hard to keep a straight face. So you see, Chen concluded, gesturing at his complex equations, the quantum torpedo didn't just create a wormhole. It actually caused a localized reality transformation effect, converting all matter within its influence sphere into a dessert-based state of existence. Admiral Zhang, the head of Fleet Scientific Division, leaned forward. Doctor, are you seriously suggesting that Captain Rodriguez, unconventional tactics didn't just defeat the Harvesters, but actually discovered a way to transmute matter on a fundamental level? Better than that, Zara chimed in. We've opened diplomatic relations with an entire universe of dessert-based lifeforms who are not only friendly to humanity but have also agreed to contain any future Harvester incursions in their dimension. Apparently they make excellent centerpieces. The admirals exchanged looks that ranged from horrified to intrigued to thoroughly amused. Finally, Admiral Chen, no relation to the doctor, spoke up. Captain Rodriguez, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You took an experimental weapon, combined it with a natural phenomenon in a way that violated at least 15 safety protocols, all while under the influence of fermented beverages, and the result was the complete neutralization of a superior enemy force, first contact with a parallel dimension, and the discovery of a new branch of physics. Zara finished proudly. Also, we got their recipe for quantum fudge. The replicators are still trying to figure that one out. Admiral Zhang pinched the bridge of his nose. And what exactly do you expect us to do with this information? Well, Zara said, pulling up another hologram, I've taken the liberty of drafting a new addition to the Fleet Tactical Manual. Section 31B, the Hold My Beer Protocol. The room erupted in a mixture of groans and poorly suppressed laughter. Admiral Chen waved for silence. Explain, he said, looking like he already regretted asking. It's simple, sir. When conventional tactics fail, when the enemy has superior numbers and firepower, when all logical solutions have been exhausted, that's when you need a human with a beer and a terrible idea. It's worked for us throughout history. The Trojan horse? Definitely a hold my beer moment. The first moon landing? Someone definitely said hold my beer during the planning stages. She's not entirely wrong, Dr. Chen admitted. The data suggests that humanity's greatest achievements often come from what other species would consider completely irrational approaches. The admirals huddled together for a whispered conference. After several minutes, Admiral Zong turned back to face them. Captain Rodriguez, in light of your unique success, we're creating a new division, the Unconventional Tactical Solutions Department. You'll be in charge of training other captains in your methods. He paused. God help us all. Yes. Zara pumped her fist and quickly resumed her professional stance. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Just try to keep the parallel universe discoveries to a minimum. Our physicists are still trying to process the pudding dimension. As they left the conference room, Dr. Chen was practically bouncing with excitement. Captain, do you realize what this means? We can finally get funding for all those experiments that were rejected for being too ridiculous or fundamentally impossible or likely to tear the fabric of reality. Easy there, Doctor. Let's not tear too many holes in the universe at once. Besides, she grinned, pulling out her communicator, we still need to figure out how to explain all this to the Galactic Council. Back on the Audacity, Kex was overseeing the installation of a new emergency backup system, a fully stocked beer refrigerator on the bridge. The ship's AI had updated its tactical protocols to include unusual beverage consumption as a predictor of imminent reality-bending events. And somewhere in the pudding dimension, Pudding Zara was explaining to her superiors why she'd approved the construction of the galaxy's largest spoon, just in case the robots try to escape their parfait prison. The harvesters, meanwhile, had reportedly started developing a taste for chocolate syrup, proving that even killer robots could be improved with proper dessert toppings. As for Captain Zara Rodriguez, she sat in her ready room, putting the finishing touches on her new training program, Advanced Unconventional Problem Solving 101, when conventional warfare just won't cut it. The first lesson: sometimes the best solution isn't the most logical one. It's the one that makes everyone else in the room say there's no way that'll work right before it does. Her next class of cadets would learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, their determination, or even their creativity. It was their ability to look at an impossible situation, crack open a beer, and say, hey, watch this. Because in the end, that's what made humans special in a galaxy full of logical species and mechanical threats. Not their ability to follow the rules, but their talent for knowing exactly when and how to break them in the most spectacular way possible. And if that meant occasionally turning hostile aliens into dessert, or discovering new laws of physics through questionable means, well, that was just another day in the life of a species that had turned "hold my beer" from a warning into a battle cry. The end. Though rumors persist that somewhere in the multiverse, there's a dimension made entirely of nacho cheese, just waiting to be discovered by another human captain with a terrible idea and a fresh beer. But that's definitely a story for another day.